last week. Now remember that if you were not here last week, you need this outline for Bible class. If you were here, you were supposed to have brought the lesson from last week back because we didn't finish. So if you don't have an outline, raise your hand and we'll have some folks pass those out. Next week, be studying Luke 23, 27 through 31. I've already made mention of that, but that's for next week. Luke 23, 27 through 31. Very, very interesting text that we don't talk about just a lot. We're in a study called The Teachings of Jesus or The Teachings of Christ, and we're looking at some of these more obscure teachings, teachings that we don't look into very much, teachings that when we read them we scratch our head a little bit and we say, what in the world is he actually talking about? What's he trying to communicate to us? And so those are the things that we've been studying. We're going to continue that through the end of April, and then starting in May we'll start a new class. Okay, so we will go through April and then start a new something coming up in April. We'll announce that a couple of weeks beforehand. We've already looked at the parable. Okay, we're talking about a parable today that's entitled The Parable of the Shrewd or Wise Servant. It's found in Luke, the 16th chapter. Luke, the 16th chapter. Who is this steward? What's going on with this steward as far as the parable is concerned? Somebody kind of summarize for us what's going on. You were here last week, so you shouldn't have forgotten anything. Should have studied it. Susan? Okay, he's going to get fired. Yes, the Lord has come to him and told him that you're going to be cast out of your stewardship, right? Why? Why is he going to be fired? Okay, the Bible says that he had wasted his master's goods, hadn't he? Was he fired just immediately, or was he given time to do something? Okay, yes, the master told him he wanted to give an account, didn't he? And that meant he was going to have to bring the books and show him everything that had transpired during this particular time. Was the steward concerned about being fired? Why? Why was he so concerned? What two things did he say? After he got fired, he said, I can't do this and I can't do that. He said, I can't work. Okay? He didn't have skills to go out there and be a manual worker. He had been in the service industry and providing a service for this man. And so, I can't go out there and work. And if you can't work, usually you go on welfare or you go beg. And he said, I'm too what to beg? I'm too proud to beg. So he's up a creek. How in the world am I going to make any money? And then all of a sudden an idea hits him, doesn't it? Ooh, yeah, this is what I'll do. And what does he do? Okay, yes, he goes to his Lord's creditors, right, that owe his Lord money, and he reduces the amount of debt that was on those loans, doesn't he? One by 50%, just cut it in half. And another one by 20%. And you think those creditors were just tickled to death? Oh man, don't you know it? We don't have to pay all this back. And we gave an explanation of why that was commended by the Lord rather than looking upon it as something that was bad, okay? And it may have been tied up in the fact of how the Jews added interest to loans and stuff. Can you pay more than, or can you pay almost equal the amount of an object through credit sometimes? Oh yeah, you buy a $125,000 home, you pay it off in 30, 40 years, and you've paid $350,000 for that house. Okay, so you've paid a huge amount. And so being able to cut that in half really tickled to death these individuals who were able to get that. Now, why did he do that? Yeah, here he is. Now he can go to those individuals, now that he's fired, and he can say, now look, I helped you out a little bit, got that loan cut down some, and now Can't you help me out and hire me into your house to help you? So now he's got an avenue to provide for himself that he didn't have before. True or false? When the Lord hears all that's being done, he's just as mad as a wet hen. No. In fact, the Bible says that he praises the servant for his forethinking. Okay? And so you and I, we read a passage like this and we go, wow, this is weird, isn't it? This isn't something that Jesus should be talking about like this, and yet it's a parable of our Lord, isn't it? And that's the reason we're talking about this one, is because it is a little bit confusing. All right, let's keep in the parable. Let's look at Luke 16, verse 8. Because in that particular verse, Jesus basically gives us the reason for the parable, folks. Okay? And it's something you and I need to keep in our minds, okay? Now remember, every parable is written usually for one main lesson. Now that's not to say that there's not hundreds of other lessons that can be found in that parable, but usually every parable that Jesus teaches has one main dominant lesson that he's trying to get across. And in this parable, right here's the main lesson. Look, listen to what he says. For the children of this world are in this generation wiser than the children of light. Wow. Who are the children of this world? Who is he talking about? Huh? Okay, non-Jews. Anybody who's not a child of who? A child of God. Okay, the children of this world. So, what he's saying is, this steward in this parable is not a what? He's not a Christian. He's not a follower of God. He's not a child of God. And yet, he has acted how? He's acted extremely wisely. And then he says, there are times when the world acts more wisely than the children of what? The children of light. Who are they? The children of light. Christians. Us. Folks, there are some times that the world and how they conduct their business and how they conduct their affairs and how they, do things in this world, they do it better than we do. Okay? And Jesus lets us know that that really isn't the way it ought to be. Okay? But sometimes that is exactly how it is. And notice some of the points that I have down there. Look under point B, under the point. They are wiser. They are more prudent, cunning, and anxious about their particular business. When the world sets up their businesses, and when the world goes to engage in their various occupations and duties and responsibilities, folks, sometimes they do a much better job than we do. And I've given you some illustrations. They show more skill. They study more plans. They contrive more ways to provide for themselves. They see possibilities. They seize opportunities. They sacrifice present comforts for future prospects. They make good bargains. They're active and industrious. They make good use of their time. And folks, sometimes we in the church don't do those things. You know that? Go into a congregation and you sit down with the leadership and you ask them, tell me your 5-year plan. Ain't got one? No plan. No plan to do anything. Okay? Go into Federal Express and sit down with their leaders and say, show me your 5-year plan. And guess what they've got? They pull it out for you, probably in the form of a book that they've developed. They know exactly where they're trying to get to. And yet the church says, we're just the church. We don't have to do that stuff. Well, that's what Jesus said. Yep, the children of the world are wiser than the children of light. Does it ever take us years to make a simple decision? Drives me bonkers. I was at a congregation once, and we had a secretary, and we had another staff member there. And once a month, the elders would sit down and they would meet with us, okay, and just talk about anything we wanted to talk about, any of our needs or whatever. And one day we were in that meeting, and it was in the morning. All the elders were there. There was 5 of them. All the elders were there. I'm going to say it one more time. All the elders were there, okay. Wasn't one gone, and I forget what we needed. It was something so piddly, you know. I'll just give an illustration. Can we buy a ream of paper? I mean, that's how piddly it was, okay? I don't remember what it was, but I do remember the reaction, okay? There was an elder sitting beside me, and he was the elder for the month, and he says, well, we'll put that on the elder's agenda and talk about that tomorrow night. I couldn't hold my tongue. I'm good about that, especially in business meeting. I used to be young and timid, and I forget that anymore. Okay, just talk and say what I need to say, and you know, we can talk it all out. I looked at that elder. I mean, I just looked at him square in the eyeballs, and I said, "You have got to be kidding." He said, No, we're going to put that on the agenda. We talk about it. And I said it again. I said, "You have got to be kidding." I said, "All of you are here. Can you not just say yes or no, and let's be done with it? You're going to go tomorrow. Well, Vic brought up this point. Can he buy a ream of paper? Yeah, we need to vote on that. Are you kidding me? You know? But that's the way the church operates sometimes, guys. Okay? We sit around and we gripe and we moan and we grow. You know, how can we grow? How can we do this? How can we? It's not a matter. It's not a matter of talking about it. It's a matter of doing what? Well, let's develop some plans and let's put them in action. Even if they fail, at least we're what? At least we're working towards something. We're trying. You know, if that one doesn't work, at least we can say what? Well, that one didn't work. and try something else. You know? Do we ever put unqualified people in areas of responsibility that don't need to be there? Oh, man, drive me nuts. Okay? Do you think Federal Express or any large corporation holds their employees accountable for how they handle their position? Sure. And yet sometimes leaderships just let things go on for years that shouldn't be let go on, and you just, really? Come on, guys. Step up to the plate, hold some folks accountable, and let's do this thing the way it needs to be done. You see, the Lord's looking at this example of this man who, he's not a child of His, he's a child of the world, and yet he acts with what? Great wisdom in what he does. And the Lord's trying to get us as a church to understand, guys, let's act with wisdom. Let's be wiser than those in the world about the things that we're doing. We're doing the most important work in all the world, aren't we? And it ought to be the most sobering thing we do, and we ought to put everything we can possibly put into it. And yet, we let the world beat us sometimes, don't we? Notice the quote down there. Sadly, the people of light are often less than shrewd. Unbelievers outpace disciples in their foresight, their ingenuity, and their risk-taking. They study their world, see opportunities, and seize them, knowing that opportunities missed are usually opportunities lost. Too often, God's people are lethargic or uncreative or unstrategic in their thinking. We spend money, but we do not use it well. Our planning is careless. Our strategy is simplistic and naive. See, all the Lord wants us to do is what? Yeah, be good stewards, right? You know, be who we ought to be. We ought to be the shining light out there, folks. Okay? We shouldn't have to be looking to everybody else saying, how do we do it like they do? Wouldn't it be wonderful if they were looking at us saying, boy, I wish we could do it the way they do it. You know? Wonderful lesson that our Lord's trying to get across to us. And it's a simple lesson. But it's simple, let me put it this way, it's simply taught. It's not simply what? Applied, is it? That's a toughie. Now, I'm telling you, if you don't believe that, become an elder of the church and try to do this. Okay, it's not easy because we're not dealing with paid people. We're dealing with volunteers, aren't we? We're not dealing with people all the time who, we got a big diversity of people here in the congregation, and it's a hard job. And yet our Lord is looking to us, and He's encouraging us to be better than the world in the things that we do. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I may mention any questions or comments on that. I'm about to pass that up. Okay, Debbie? Sure, that happens sometime. It happens sometime. Change for change's sake is not good, is it? Just to change, but needed change, good change, worthy change, that's needed desperately in the church. And sometimes we are slow. It's amazing. We're the last ones to get PowerPoint. We're the last ones to get an overhead projector. We're the last ones to buy a chalkboard. Now, I'm going backwards in history rather than forward in history, okay? Because we're at PowerPoint finally, okay? But guess what, guys? PowerPoint, that stuff in denominational churches, it was there a long time ago. As soon as that technology hits the market, guess what? They're on it, okay? And young people and younger families, guess what? They appreciate that. That's the world they're growing up in, okay? They're not on rotary phones anymore, okay?
Why do you think that is?
Everybody here's question? His question was, why do I think that is? Is it because they're scared that if we reach out into innovative things that it might be unscriptural? Okay? There's probably a lot of reasons for it. Okay? That being one, because most of the time elderships, and rightly so, are they're resistant to change somewhat. Okay? And that's part of their responsibility. The word conservative involves that very concept. Did you know that? You have conservative and you have progressive. Okay? Progressive is an individual who's just eager. Run out there and change everything. Okay? Even without thought sometimes. A conservative is a person who what? Gives tons of thought before making any change. And because we're conservative and we don't want to venture out there into something that's error, we are slower at times. Another big reason is finances. Do you know that? This stuff ain't cheap. You know that? Folks, you're going to keep up with technology like PowerPoint and projectors and cameras and sound systems and stuff. Guess what? It's not cheap. It's going to cost some buckolas to do that kind of stuff. Okay? And sometimes the church is cheap. We don't always even meet our budget, and we're worried about, can we even do the things that we've planned to do kind of, sort of, through the course of the year. If you got $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 extra, guess what? Man, we could look at a lot of things maybe to do that we can't do otherwise. Okay? Here's something else that's interesting to me. Everybody always wants things to be done. Nobody wants to lead them. You know what? Oh, this church needs to be doing something. Well, will you lead it? No, I ain't leading. Folks, if you don't have a leader, guess what? It ain't going anywhere. Is it? If you want something done, guess what? You go to the elders and you've got a good idea. A lot of times the elders will say what? You want to do this? Take it, run with it. We'll encourage you, we'll help you. But people don't want to what? They don't want to be responsible. They don't want to, I ain't got all that time to do that stuff down there, but that church needs to be doing it. See, we're contradictory in what we want versus what we're willing to give. And so guess what? I know a congregation, and this one doesn't either, but I know a congregation That's a big congregation of about 400 people up in Tennessee. They have one minister, no youth ministers. They have 6 devotionals a week in that congregation for young people. All the way from the little ones to 2 for the college kids. A week. They have mission trips. They have all kinds of stuff that they're involved in. And guess who does it? Mama and Daddy. That's who does it. Their moms and dads come together at the very first of the year in January, and they plan the whole schedule for the year. Mamas and daddies who are concerned about their young people. And they've done it for years, folks. But guess what? They're willing to lead. They're willing to invest the time and the effort. And it takes a bunch of it. You know what? A ton of it to do those things. You see, we want all this stuff, but we want it in a microwave oven, don't we? Easy, simple, and produce marvelous results. Well, guess what? The world knows better. You know that? The world knows better. What town it is? Murfreesboro. Yeah, Murfreesboro. Good congregation there that's involved in it. They have a college there, so they have they work with the college kids. They several of the members adopt college kids and let them come over, feed them, wash their clothes, have Saturday night TV, all kinds of stuff, And so they're out there, and they've done it for years, and they will never hire a youth man, never, because they don't need one. Mom and dads have stepped up to the plate for 30 years, and they always will. Okay, so just a wonderful situation there. But that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Okay, we think we need all this stuff, and a lot of times we just need what? We just need 1 or 2 people willing to lead. All right, anybody else? Questions or comments? That was good. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep. Look, the children's home at Paragould is operated under the eldership at the 7th and Muller Church of Christ in Paragould. Okay, that's who are the overseers of that particular program. You have works like House to House, Heart to Heart. That's a huge work, folks. Huge work. Okay, massive undertaking by that church. The Spiritual Sword. The Get Well Church of Christ only has 100 members like we do. Okay, over the years their membership has dropped. A lot of it due to community stuff and just changes in the area. But they refuse to let the Spiritual Sword lectureship, the Spiritual Sword book, the Spiritual Sword publication. They refuse to let that go down, and so they give abundantly and they work hard to make certain those kind of things continue. So, and I've always said in my mind, every church that I see that has one work that they're pretty invested in, the church are liberal givers, and oftentimes they're large in number because there's something there that's exciting. There's something there that's people want to be a part of within that congregation. Okay, so but you're right. I think some people think if you're too big, then you're not faithful or whatever. So they have a tendency to we want to be small. Okay, Teresa, what were you going to say? Right. Yeah, we're getting into another point in the study that's interesting. I don't know that we'll get there, but it's good. Let's go real fast. What time? I got 5 minutes to do 4 pages of notes. Let me do them real quickly. Number 1, folks, we are all stewards. Got that? We're all stewards. And so, we can look at our elders, we can look at the preacher, we can look at the deacons, we can look at whoever we want to. And what I first need to do before I go evaluating another steward is, I better look at my own what? My own stewardship. Okay? And I've given you a list of things there. We're stewards of the earth, stewards of money, stewards of our body, stewards of our children, our souls, our talents, stewards of the gospel. So the question is what? How are we using our personal stewardship? Okay? That's just as important. Can I waste my master's goods as an individual? Sure. And sometimes there's people out in the world that use their lives more productively than we do as Christians. You know it? And even in their spiritual lives, even though they may be wrong, it's amazing, isn't it? It kills me. We're so worried about the stinking clock, and we get out of here and we drive past Harvest Dome or whatever, and guess what? Those people there till 10 o'clock. They got kids and they got babies. They got to be in bed, and guess what? They don't care. They just in there doing their thing. Over here, oh, we're not out by 8, preacher. Got to be out by 8. Not there. Why? You see, a lot of that comes down to personal stuff. Our own hearts. Secondly, stewards are required to be faithful. We've talked about that. Thirdly, temptations can come to a steward, can it? And I've listed some of the temptations. The temptation to be lazy, the temptation to steal, the temptation to use the good of the master for personal gain, the temptation to extravagance or wastefulness. Okay, so there's a lot of temptation. I'm trying. Point D, stewards will be held accountable. And folks, we need to understand that, okay? After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. Matthew 25, verse 19. Stewards need to act wisely, okay? We could just talk about a bunch of things in there. Notice point F. Stewards need to be faithful in small things. Okay, not just the big things, but even in small things. Okay? We've all heard that old saying, we need to count our pennies. Count your pennies and what? Dollars take care of themselves. Okay, so that's being a steward over the small things. And I've listed some things there that are small, and people do great jobs doing some of those things. There at Eastwood, when we were there, we had the same problem because I was there with technology that we do here. Okay, I just have a bad effect on technology. And we assigned a guy to change the batteries every Sunday morning in the microphone. And guess what? Every Sunday, buddy, he was there like clockwork. Okay? He'd walk up to me, hand me my mic. Vic, batteries are changed. Thank you. And guess what? No problem with the sound system. I had a battery every time. Never went down, never went out. It was wonderful. Little guy was just, and guys, that's not a big deal. I ain't going to change them batteries. You know? But this guy was glad to do it. Man, he was eager to do it. See, that's the kind, be faithful in the little things, and guess what? Then you'll get the big things. Okay? Drop down to the Pharisees down there real quickly. Folks, the Pharisees ridiculed Jesus. And the Pharisees also, which were covetous, heard all these things, and they derided him. Man, Jesus' teachings weren't popular, and they're still not popular today, are they? And there's going to be times when individuals are going to, deride us for what we have to say. And here were a group of individuals. They were very, very covetous. They were lovers of riches, and even though they were the religious people of the day. And they really came against Jesus hard, and He rebukes them. And listen to what He says. Ye are they which justify yourselves before men, but God knoweth your hearts. For that which is highly esteemed among men is an abomination in the sight of God. And so, there's things that God looks upon, and, even though we may esteem it highly as men, even though we're religious people, God may look down and He may say, I'm not too impressed with that. You know that? It's not something that makes me feel great about what you're doing. And that was true of the Pharisees in that day. So, very good parable. There's a lot more that we could talk about, but we'll move on. If not, we'll just stay there forever. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah.
And just wait for that bell to ring. And I think that, you had to hurry through a lot of stuff. so good.
Yep.
And we should be watching. The only thing that is back in the nursery, I know that but everybody should know all of this. This is a spiritual lesson to be learned. From the time you get married until death. And this has just been wonderful. And we should be just waiting for that bell.
I agree. But, too, here's something else that we got to learn in the church, too, is, guys, I can stand up here an hour and a half in Bible class every Sunday, and guess what? Still run out of time, still be stuff to study. That's why God tells us that we're supposed to study at home, too. Aren't we? Because I just can't give you everything, okay? But you're right. Thank y'all. It's been a good class. I appreciate it.